Asterisk. It was a dark and stormy night. Sarah and her friends, Mike and Lucy, decided to take a shortcut through the old haunted woods to get home faster. They had heard the stories about the woods, but they didn't believe in ghosts. Asterisk, asterisk. As they entered the woods, the wind howled through the trees, and shadows danced in the dim light of their flashlights. The path was narrow and overgrown, making it difficult to walk. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise coming from the darkness. It sounded like whispering, but they couldn't understand the words. Sarah suggested they keep moving, but Mike wanted to check it out. They came across an old abandoned cabin. The windows were broken, and the door hung loosely on its hinges. Lucy felt a chill run down her spine as they approached it. Inside the cabin, the air was cold and damp. Cobwebs covered the corners, and the floor creaked with every step. They found old furniture and strange symbols carved into the walls. Just as they were about to leave, a ghostly apparition appeared in front of them. It was a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothes with a sorrowful expression. She whispered, "Leave this place." Just as they were about to leave, a ghostly apparition appeared in front of them. It was a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothes with a sorrowful expression. She whispered, "Leave this place." Terrified, they ran out of the cabin and back into the woods. The ghostly woman seemed to follow them, her whispers growing louder and more desperate. They could feel her cold presence right behind them. In their panic, they lost the path and found themselves deeper in the woods. The trees seemed to close in on them, and the whispers of the ghostly woman echoed around them. Just when they thought they were lost forever, they saw a faint light in the distance. They followed it and found themselves at the edge of the woods, the ghostly whispers fading away. They finally made it out of the woods, panting and scared, but safe. They vowed never to take that shortcut again and hurried home, the haunting experience etched in their memories forever. The sun was setting as Emily, a young journalist, arrived at Ravenswood Manor. She had heard rumors of the haunted mansion and wanted to investigate for her next big story. The old, decaying building stood at the edge of the town, surrounded by overgrown trees. As she approached the iron gates, a sense of dread washed over her. Emily pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and cold. Dust covered the floor and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but neglected interior. Her footsteps echoed ominously as she walked down the main hallway. In the dim light, Emily noticed portraits lining the walls. The eyes in the paintings seemed to follow her every move, making her uneasy. Suddenly, she heard a faint whisper, like someone calling her name. She turned around quickly, but there was no one there. Her heart began to race. Emily entered the music room, where an old piano stood covered in dust. As she approached, she heard a soft, haunting melody. The keys were moving on their own, playing a melancholic tune. The room grew colder, and Emily felt an unseen presence watching her. In the library, Emily found a hidden door behind a bookcase. Inside, she discovered a small room filled with strange artifacts and an old leather-bound journal. She opened the journal and read about dark rituals and a curse placed on the mansion. The final entry warned of a vengeful spirit trapped within the house. As Emily read the journal, the temperature dropped sharply. She heard footsteps approaching and saw a shadowy figure materialize in the doorway. The figure was a ghostly woman with a twisted expression of rage. She pointed at Emily, her voice echoing with anger. "You must leave this place!" Emily's survival instincts kicked in, and she bolted from the hidden room. She raced through the dark hallways, the spirit's angry screams echoing behind her. She reached the front door and flung it open, escaping into the night. Gasping for breath, she looked back to see the mansion standing silent and still, but she knew she had been lucky to escape with her life. Safe at home, Emily reviewed her notes and the footage she had captured. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article, revealing the mansion's dark history and the vengeful spirit. As she finished, she felt a cold breeze and heard a whisper, "Thank you." She knew the spirits had found some peace. In the heart of a dense forest stood an old forgotten asylum. It had been abandoned for decades, its history buried under layers of dust and overgrown vines. The locals believed it was cursed, and no one dared to go near it. However, a group of 4 friends, Jake, Lisa, Ben, and Sarah, decided to explore it after hearing the eerie tales. Are we really doing this, Indato Selwyn? Lisa asked, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. Of course, Jake replied, leading the way. It's just an old building. As they approached the asylum, the air grew colder, and an unsettling silence surrounded them. Inside, the asylum was even more ominous. The walls were lined with peeling paint, and the floor was covered in debris. The air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. This place gives me the creeps, Ben said, his flashlight illuminating the dark corridors. Just stick together, Jake said, trying to sound brave. We'll be fine. As they moved deeper into the asylum, they heard faint whispers and distant footsteps, though they were the only ones there. Or so they thought. While exploring a particularly dark hallway, Lisa suddenly screamed. Did you see that? She pointed towards a shadowy figure that disappeared around the corner. What did you see? Jake asked, rushing to her side. A person, or something that looked like one, Lisa replied, shaking. Let's check it out, Ben suggested, though his voice was shaky. They cautiously followed, but the figure was gone. Instead, they found an old, rusted wheelchair with fresh scratch marks on the floor. In one of the rooms, they found old patient records and disturbing photos. The files detailed horrific experiments conducted on the patients. This is sick, Sarah said, flipping through the documents. No wonder this place is abandoned. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. The friends rushed to open it, but it was stuck. The room grew colder, and they heard a low, guttural growl. We need to get out of here, Jake said, panic setting in. They managed to pry the door open and fled down the corridor. The whispers grew louder, and they could feel a presence following them. Sarah looked back and saw shadowy figures closing in. Run! She screamed. They raced through the maze-like hallways, trying to find an exit. The spirits of the asylum's past residents seemed to be everywhere, their wails echoing through the walls. We're not alone, Ben panted, fear evident in his voice. The group stumbled upon a chapel within the asylum, its stained glass windows cracked but still intact. The room had an eerie calmness, and the spirits seemed to avoid it. Maybe we can hide here, Lisa suggested, her voice trembling. They barricaded the doors and huddled together, trying to catch their breath. As they sat in the dim light of their flashlights, they noticed a hidden door behind the altar. Should we check it out? Jake asked. We don't have a choice, Ben replied. They opened the hidden door and found a narrow staircase leading down to a secret basement. The air grew colder as they descended. The basement was filled with old medical equipment and cages. This must be where they conducted their experiments, Sarah whispered. As they explored, they found a large, iron-bound book, filled with incantations and rituals. The book seemed to pulse with a dark energy. We need to destroy this, Jake said. It might be the source of the curse. With the book in hand, they returned to the chapel. They decided to perform a ritual to break the curse. As they began chanting from the book, the spirits became more aggressive, banging on the doors and windows. Keep going, Alex shouted. The room shook, and the spirits' wails grew louder. Just as it seemed the spirits would break through, a blinding light filled the chapel, and the spirits screamed one final time before vanishing. It's over, Emily whispered, dropping the book. The spirits gone, the friends made their way out of the asylum. The building seemed less menacing now, the air lighter. We made it, Lisa said, relief evident in her voice. As they reached the forest edge, they turned back to see the asylum one last time. It stood silently, as if the horrors within had finally been laid to rest. We should go, Ben said, and never speak of this place again. Back in town, life slowly returned to normal. The friends promised each other to never speak of the asylum again. However, the memories of that night lingered. A few weeks later, Sarah received a package. Inside was another iron-bound book, similar to the one they had destroyed. Attached was a note, for your collection. Her heart raced as she realized the curse might not be broken after all. Blackwood Manor stood isolated at the edge of a dense forest, its Gothic architecture looming ominously against the darkening sky. Emily, a young journalist, arrived to investigate the mysterious disappearances that had plagued the manor for decades. Determined to uncover the truth, She parked her car and approached the grand, yet decaying front doors. As Emily stepped inside, the door creaked loudly, echoing through the vast, dimly lit hall. Dust motes danced in the air, disturbed by her presence. The air was cold and an unsettling silence enveloped her. She turned on her flashlight, illuminating the grand staircase and the darkened corners of the hall. Emily walked into the living room, where old furniture lay shrouded in white sheets. A large fireplace dominated one wall, with an ornate mirror hanging above it. She felt a chill as she noticed a faint figure reflected in the mirror. But when she turned, the room was empty. The only sound was the faint ticking of an old grandfather clock. Emily found a long hallway lined with portraits of the Blackwood family. The eyes of the painted figures seemed to follow her as she walked. One portrait, in particular, caught her attention. A stern-looking woman with piercing eyes. Suddenly, Emily felt a cold hand on her shoulder. But when she turned around, there was no one there. The library was filled with ancient books and heavy wooden furniture. Emily felt drawn to an old leather-bound journal on a desk. As she opened it, she found entries detailing strange rituals and dark secrets of the Blackwood family. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and the whispers of unseen figures filled the air. Emily discovered a hidden door leading to the basement. As she descended the creaking stairs, the air grew colder and the darkness thicker. Her flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the damp walls. She heard distant, echoing whispers and the faint sound of footsteps following her. At the bottom of the stairs, Emily found a room filled with strange symbols and an altar. The air was thick with the scent of incense and decay. She realized this was where the Blackwood family had conducted their dark rituals. As she explored, she heard a low, menacing chant and felt an oppressive presence closing in on her. Emily's flashlight died, plunging her into darkness. The chanting grew louder, and ghostly figures emerged from the shadows. She felt a cold hand grip her arm, pulling her towards the altar. Summoning her courage, she broke free and ran up the stairs, the spirit's wails echoing behind her. Emily burst out of Blackwood Manor, gasping for breath. The night was still and silent, a stark contrast to the horrors inside. Clutching the journal, she vowed to expose the truth about the Blackwood family. As she walked away, she glanced back one last time, seeing the faint outline of a figure watching her from an upstairs window. A group of friends, Alex, Maya, Ben, and Emma, arrive at the secluded Willow Lake for a weekend camping trip. The sun dips below the horizon as they set up their tents on the shore, the water reflecting the fading light. Excitement fills the air as they gather around a crackling campfire, swapping stories and laughter. As night falls, a thick fog rolls in from the lake, shrouding the campsite in an eerie haze. The friends exchange uneasy glances as the temperature drops, the crackling of the campfire the only sound breaking the silence. Shadows dance in the mist and strange shapes move just beyond the edge of their vision. As the night wears on, the friends begin to notice strange occurrences around the campsite. Personal belongings go missing, only to reappear in odd places moments later. The tent flaps flutter open and shut of their own accord, and eerie whispers float on the breeze. Tension mounts as they realize they are not alone in the darkness. Suddenly, a figure materializes out of the fog, a spectral apparition with hollow eyes and a gaping mouth. The friends recoil in horror as it reaches out towards them, its form shifting and wavering in the mist. Frozen with fear, they watch as it drifts closer, its unearthly wails echoing in the night. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends scramble to pack up their belongings and flee from the campsite. They race through the fog-shrouded forest, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the darkness. Branches claw at their skin, and roots trip them up as they push themselves to their limits, desperate to escape the grasp of the malevolent spirit. Exhausted and out of breath, the friends finally emerge from the forest and into the safety of the open meadow. They collapse on the grass, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and fear. As they catch their breath, they exchange relieved glances, grateful to have survived the night. But as they look back at Willow Lake, they can't shake the feeling that they have awakened something ancient and malevolent that will continue to haunt the wilderness for years to come. Grimsby Manor had a dark history that intrigued many, but only a few dared to explore its secrets. On a foggy autumn evening, Sarah, a young journalist with a passion for the paranormal, arrived at the mansion. She parked her car at the rusty gates, feeling a chill run down her spine. The mansion stood ominously in the distance, its windows like dark, watchful eyes. Sarah pushed open the creaking door of Grimsby Manor. Inside, the air was cold and musty. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but decaying foyer. Dust and cobwebs covered every surface, and old furniture lay shrouded in white sheets. Her footsteps echoed through the vast, empty space as she ventured further inside. As Sarah explored the mansion, she felt a sudden chill. Turning around, she saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. The figure disappeared as quickly as it appeared, leaving her heart pounding. Determined to uncover more, she made her way to the library, hoping to find records of the mansion's dark past. In the library, Sarah found rows of dusty old books. As she searched through them, she heard faint whispers and the sound of pages turning on their own. She discovered an old diary belonging to the mansion's original owner, Lord Grimsby. The entry spoke of dark rituals and a curse that had been placed on the house and its inhabitants. Sarah's exploration led her to a room filled with mirrors. As she walked through, her reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following her with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular caught her attention. In it, she saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. Sarah reached out to touch the mirror, but the image vanished. Sarah discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. She descended the creaky stairs into a dark, musty basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old, dusty books scattered on a table. She found a journal detailing the dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by Lord Grimsby. As Sarah read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Lord Grimsby appeared, his face twisted with rage. He pointed at Sarah and screamed, "You should not have come here." The walls shook and the air filled with a chilling wind. Sarah knew she had to leave immediately. Sarah bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind her. She raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on her. She burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but she could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on her. Back in her apartment, Sarah reviewed the photos and notes she had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article, revealing the dark history of Grimsby Manor. As she finished, she felt a cold draft and heard Lord Grimsby's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." Sarah knew the haunting was far from over. James, a middle-aged man who recently lost his job, receives an unexpected letter. It's an invitation to visit Willow Creek, a small town where his late grandmother owned an old, decrepit house. Intrigued and in need of a change, he decides to visit the house with his wife, Sarah, and their teenage daughter, Emma. "Why have we never heard of this place before?" Sarah asks, reading the letter again. James shrugs. "I guess it was forgotten, just like Grandma." Emma, excited by the idea of an adventure, chimes in, "I can't wait to see what it's like." The family arrives at Willow Creek after a long drive. The town is eerily quiet, with old, abandoned buildings lining the streets. They finally reach the house, which stands at the end of a narrow, overgrown road. The house is large, Gothic, and appears to have been untouched for decades. "This place is giving me the creeps," Sarah whispers, holding Emma's hand. James tries to reassure them. "It's just old. Let's see what's inside." Inside, the house is dark and filled with dust. The furniture is covered in white sheets, and cobwebs hang from the ceiling. As they explore, Emma finds an old diary in one of the bedrooms. "Look at this, Mom," Emma says, flipping through the pages. Sarah reads aloud, "June 12th, 1923. Strange noises keep me awake at night. I fear the spirits are restless." James frowns. "Spirits?" That night, the family tries to sleep, but strange noises echo through the house. Doors creak and distant whispers can be heard. Emma wakes up in the middle of the night, feeling a cold breeze. She sees a shadowy figure at the foot of her bed. "Dad, is that you?" she whispers, but the figure vanishes. Emma runs to her parents' room, terrified. "Mom, Dad, there's someone in my room!" The next day, the family visits the local library to learn more about the house. They discover that it was built by a wealthy family in the 1800s, but tragedy struck when the entire family mysteriously disappeared. This place has a dark history, Sarah says, reading an old newspaper article. James nods. We need to find out what happened. Emma adds, maybe the diary has more clues. Back at the house, James finds a hidden door in the basement. Inside, they discover a room filled with old photographs, letters, and strange symbols drawn on the walls. There's also a large locked chest. These symbols look like some kind of ritual, Sarah says, tracing them with her finger. James tries to open the chest. We need to find the key. Emma points to a photograph. Look, that's the family that lived here. That night, the hauntings become more intense. Objects move on their own, and ghostly apparitions appear. Emma is dragged out of bed by an unseen force, and Sarah sees a figure standing at the end of the hallway watching them. We need to leave now, Sarah screams, but the doors are locked and won't open. James grabs the diary and starts reading the last entry. We must complete the ritual to appease the spirits. Desperate, the family gathers in the basement to perform the ritual described in the diary. They light candles and arrange the symbols in a circle. James reads the incantation aloud, while Sarah and Emma hold hands, trembling. As the ritual progresses, the house shakes and the spirits grow more agitated. A blinding light fills the room, and the spirits are drawn into the circle, screaming. Keep going, James, Sarah yells over the noise. With a final shout, James completes the incantation and the spirits vanish. The house falls silent. The next morning, the house feels different. The oppressive atmosphere is gone and sunlight streams through the windows. The family packs up their belongings, relieved that the ordeal is over. We should tell the authorities about this place, Sarah says, looking back at the house. James nods. Let's make sure no one else has to go through this. They drive away, leaving Willow Creek behind. Back home, life seems to return to normal. But one night, Emma finds the old diary on her bedside table, even though she left it in the house. Her heart races as she opens it, and a cold breeze fills the room. A whispering voice fills the air. You cannot escape the past. Emma turns to see a shadowy figure standing in the corner, its eyes glowing with malevolence. She screams as the room plunges into darkness. Willow House, an old decrepit mansion, stands alone in the middle of an overgrown yard. Its windows are shattered, and ivy climbs up the stone walls. As the sun sets, the house is bathed in a gloomy light, casting long shadows that hint at the mansion's dark past. Inside Willow House, the foyer is filled with dust and cobwebs. An old chandelier hangs from the ceiling, its crystals dulled by grime. A grand staircase leads up to darkness, and broken furniture lies scattered, remnants of a time long forgotten. The living room is a snapshot of a bygone era, with a dusty sofa and a cold, empty fireplace. Portraits of stern-looking ancestors line the walls, their eyes seeming to follow every movement. The air is thick with the scent of neglect and faded grandeur. In the dining room, a long table is draped with a dusty, tattered tablecloth. Cobwebs hang from a once elegant chandelier, and old rusty cutlery is scattered about. The broken windows let in the cold night air, amplifying the room's eerie stillness. The kitchen is in disarray with broken cabinets and old pots and pans scattered around. The walls are stained and the floor is covered in debris. An old rusted knife lies on the counter, a silent witness to the passage of time. The grand staircase is enveloped in darkness. The wooden steps creak with every movement, and the banister is thick with dust. Faint, eerie whispers echo through the air, sending shivers down the spine. In the bedroom, a canopy bed stands covered in dust and cobwebs. Moonlight filters through cracked windows, casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. An old wardrobe in the corner has its doors slightly ajar, adding to the room's unsettling atmosphere. The attic is cluttered with old, forgotten items covered in sheets and dust. A single dim light bulb hangs from the ceiling, casting long shadows that dance eerily. The air is thick and musty, filled with the scent of decay and lost memories. A hidden door in the attic reveals a secret room. Inside, the space is filled with old books and strange artifacts. A large, dust-covered mirror dominates one wall, reflecting an eerie, distorted image. The atmosphere is heavy with an unseen presence, making the air feel thick and oppressive. As dawn breaks, Willow House is bathed in the soft light of the morning sun. The shadows recede, revealing the full extent of the mansion's decay. Birds begin to chirp, their cheerful notes bringing a sense of normalcy back to the eerie setting. The horrors of the night fade, but the memories linger, a haunting reminder of the echoes that inhabit Willow House. A car winds its way through the thick fog, approaching the small town of Willow Creek. Inside are four friends, eager for a weekend of camping and adventure. As they reach the outskirts of town, they pass an old abandoned mansion shrouded in mist. A sense of unease settles over them, but they push it aside, eager to reach their destination. The friends arrive at their campsite by Willow Creek, surrounded by towering trees and the gentle babble of the water. They set up their tents and gather around a crackling fire, swapping stories and roasting marshmallows. But as darkness falls, the woods seem to come alive with strange sounds, and a feeling of being watched settles over the group. As they explore the woods, the friends stumble upon an old, dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. Intrigued, they cautiously approach, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. Inside, they find decaying furniture and strange symbols carved into the walls. Suddenly, they hear a noise from the darkness, a low, guttural growl that freezes them in their tracks. Driven by curiosity, the friends decide to investigate the abandoned mansion they passed earlier. As they approach, they're struck by its imposing presence, the windows boarded up, the walls covered in ivy. They push open the creaking door and step inside, the air heavy with the weight of forgotten memories. Inside the mansion, the friends are overcome by a sense of dread. Shadows dance in the corners of their vision, and cold spots chill them to the bone. They hear whispers in the darkness, urging them to leave, but they press on, determined to uncover the secrets hidden within the mansion's walls. As they delve deeper into the mansion, the friends encounter increasingly sinister phenomena. Objects move on their own, disembodied voices echo through the halls, and ghostly apparitions materialize before their eyes. Fear grips them, threatening to tear apart their sanity as they struggle to make sense of the horrors unfolding around them. With the mansion's malevolent presence closing in around them, the friends make a desperate bid for escape. They run through the twisting corridors, pursued by unseen forces that threaten to consume them whole. As they burst through the front door, gasping for breath, they realize they've escaped with their lives. But the horrors they've witnessed will haunt them forever. Ravenwood Manor stands tall amidst the encroaching darkness, its imposing silhouette cutting a stark figure against the dimming sky. The Gothic architecture is veiled in shadows, with ivy snaking its way up the weathered walls like grasping fingers. A sense of foreboding hangs heavy in the air, hinting at the secrets that lie within. The gardens of Ravenwood Manor lie in disarray, their once manicured lawns now overrun with tangled foliage and gnarled trees. Moonlight filters through the twisted branches, casting eerie silhouettes upon the overgrown vegetation and adding to the unsettling atmosphere that permeates the grounds. The iron gates of Ravenwood Manor loom imposingly in the darkness, their once intricate designs now obscured by rust and neglect. Moonlight glints off the metal bars, casting eerie patterns upon the ground below and lending an air of desolation to the entrance of the estate. Inside Ravenwood Manor, the grand foyer is illuminated by flickering candlelight, casting long shadows across the marble floor. Dust motes dance in the air, stirred by a silence so profound it feels almost tangible, as if the very walls are holding their breath in anticipation of what is to come. In the dining hall of Ravenwood Manor, a long table is set for a macabre feast, its once opulent setting now shrouded in decay. Cobwebs hang from the chandeliers like tattered curtains, and the air is heavy with the musty scent of neglect, a grim reminder of the mansion's former glory days. Within Ravenwood Manor's library, dusty shelves groan under the weight of forgotten knowledge. Moonlight filters through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns upon the worn carpet. The air is thick with the smell of aging paper and the secrets contained within the ancient tomes that line the walls. In the ballroom of Ravenwood Manor, a grand chandelier hangs from the ceiling, its once glistening crystals now dull and lifeless. Moonlight filters through broken windows, casting eerie shadows upon the cracked dance floor. The room echoes with the ghostly laughter of revelries long past, a haunting reminder of the mansion's former glory. Within the study of Ravenwood Manor, dusty books and forgotten artifacts clutter every available surface. A single candle flickers on the desk, its feeble light casting eerie shadows upon the walls. Ghostly figures seem to dance in the darkness, their presence felt but never seen, adding to the sense of unease that permeates the room. In the bedroom of Ravenwood Manor, a canopy bed stands like a relic of a bygone era, its once luxurious linens now covered in dust and cobwebs. Moonlight filters through cracked windows, casting eerie shadows upon the peeling wallpaper. The room is frozen in time, a silent witness to the horrors that haunt its halls. As dawn breaks over Ravenwood Manor, the backyard is bathed in the soft light of a new day. The full extent of its decay is revealed in the morning light as mist rises from the damp earth and shrouds the crumbling structures in an ethereal glow. The horrors of the night retreat with the darkness, but the memory of their presence lingers like a shadow upon the land.
Emily, Jake, and Sarah arrived at Blackwood Manor, an ancient, crumbling estate shrouded in mist. The manor had been abandoned for decades, and stories of its haunting were legendary. They were there to document the paranormal activity for their online show. "This place is seriously creepy," Sarah said, shivering as she stepped out of the car. "That's the point," Jake replied, setting up his camera. "The spookier, the better." Emily led the way up the overgrown path to the front door, her excitement mixed with unease. "Let's get inside and start setting up." Inside the manor, the air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. The grand hall was filled with old furniture, draped in white sheets. As they explored, they found evidence of the past: old portraits, tattered books, and broken artifacts. "Look at this," Sarah said, picking up an old locket. "It must have belonged to someone important." Jake filmed everything, capturing the unsettling atmosphere. "This is going to be great footage." Emily found an old diary on a dusty table. "This might tell us what happened here." Emily read aloud from the diary, which detailed the tragic story of the Blackwood family. They had practiced dark rituals, summoning spirits that ultimately led to their downfall. The diary ended abruptly, hinting at a terrible event. "This is so creepy," Sarah said, looking around nervously. "We need to document everything," Jake insisted. "This is gold." As Emily closed the diary, a sudden chill filled the room. The lights flickered, and they heard a distant whisper. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. A shadow moved across the hall, catching their attention. They followed it to a room at the end of the corridor. Inside, the temperature dropped dramatically, and they saw a figure standing by the window. "Who's there?" Jake called out, but there was no response. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face twisted with pain and anger. It lunged at them, and they ran, slamming the door behind them. "We need to get out of here," Sarah screamed. "Not yet," Emily said, her fear giving way to determination. "We have to finish what we started." Emily found instructions for a banishment ritual in the diary. They gathered candles, chalk, and other items needed for the ritual. The air was thick with tension as they worked quickly, knowing the spirit could return at any moment. "Are you sure this will work?" Jake asked, lighting the candles. "It has to," Emily replied, drawing a circle on the floor. "We don't have any other choice." Sarah stood guard, her eyes darting around the room. "Hurry up. I don't want to be here any longer than we have to." As they began the ritual, the spirit returned, more furious than before. It howled and thrashed against the invisible barrier created by the circle. Emily chanted the incantation from the diary, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Keep it away from us," Sarah yelled, clutching a candle. "We're almost there," Emily shouted back, her focus unwavering. The spirit's form began to waver and dissolve as the ritual reached its climax. With one final desperate scream, it vanished into thin air. The friends collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a peaceful silence. "We did it," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's get out of here," Sarah urged, her eyes still wide with fear. They gathered their things and left the manor, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. As they walked away from Blackwood Manor, they felt a sense of triumph and relief. "Let's never do this again," Jake said, managing a weak smile. As they walked away from the manor, the sun rose higher, casting a warm glow over the forest. The manor behind them was now just a distant memory, a place they would never forget but never return to. "Let's make a pact," Emily said, stopping to look at her friends. "We never speak of this again." "Agreed," Jake and Sarah said in unison. They walked on, the past behind them and the future ahead, grateful to have survived the haunting of Blackwood Manor. As the setting sun casts long shadows over the forest, a group of friends arrives at a remote cabin nestled deep within the trees. Excited for a weekend of hiking and relaxation, they unload their belongings from the car and take in the tranquility of their surroundings. Little do they know, the forest holds secrets darker than they could ever imagine. As night falls, the friends gather around a crackling campfire, the flames casting flickering shadows on their faces. They share stories and laughter, enjoying the camaraderie of their weekend retreat. But as the fire dims and the forest grows quiet, a sense of unease settles over the group. In the morning, the friends discover an old map hidden among the cabin's belongings. Intrigued, they decide to follow its cryptic instructions and venture deeper into the forest in search of hidden treasure. As they set out on their journey, they can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. Following the map's directions, the friends stumble upon an enchanted grove hidden deep within the forest. The trees whisper secrets to one another, and strange symbols adorn the ground beneath their feet. As they explore the grove, they feel a sense of otherworldly power coursing through the air. As the friends linger in the grove, they catch sight of shadowed figures moving among the trees. Their movements are silent and swift, and their eyes gleam with an otherworldly light. Fear grips the group as they realize they're not alone in the forest. As night falls, the forest comes alive with malevolent energy. The shadows grow thicker, and the air grows colder as the friends find themselves lost in the labyrinthine depths of the woods. Panic sets in as they realize they're trapped in a nightmare from which there's no escape. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends make a final stand against the darkness that surrounds them. Armed with courage and determination, they confront the shadowed figures that haunt the forest, knowing that their survival depends on their ability to overcome the evil that lurks within. As dawn breaks, the darkness recedes, and the forest falls silent once more. The friends emerge from the depths of the woods, battered and bruised but alive. They breathe a sigh of relief, grateful to have survived the night, but knowing that the memories of their harrowing ordeal will stay with them forever. Michael, a man in his late 30s, receives a surprising letter. His great-uncle, whom he barely knew, has passed away, leaving him an old manor in the remote countryside. Intrigued and financially struggling, Michael decides to visit the manor with his wife, Sarah, and their teenage daughter, Emily. Michael reads the letter aloud. It says we have inherited an estate. Sarah looks at him skeptically. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Michael nods. "We could use a fresh start. Besides, what harm could it do?" Emily, always up for an adventure, adds, "It sounds exciting. Let's go." The family arrives at the manor in the late afternoon. The mansion is grand but clearly neglected, surrounded by overgrown gardens and tall, dense trees. The sky is overcast, casting a gloomy shadow over the scene. Emily shivers. "This place gives me the creeps." Michael tries to be optimistic. "It's just old. We can fix it up." Sarah clutches Emily's hand. "Let's stay close and see what's inside." Inside, the manor is filled with dust, cobwebs, and a musty smell. The furniture is covered with white sheets. As they explore, Emily finds an old, ornate mirror in one of the rooms. Unlike the rest of the house, the mirror's surface is strangely clean. "Look at this mirror," Emily calls out. Sarah touches the frame. "It's beautiful, but it feels out of place." Michael frowns. "Why is it so clean?" That night, the family tries to settle in. Michael and Sarah fall asleep quickly, but Emily struggles. Around midnight, she hears faint whispers and feels a cold breeze. The mirror in her room begins to fog up, revealing words written from the inside. "Help us," it reads. Terrified, Emily runs to her parents' room. "Mom, Dad, there's something in the mirror." Michael, groggy, tries to comfort her. "It's just your imagination, Emily. Go back to sleep." The next day, The family visits the local library to learn more about the manor. They discover that it was owned by Michael's great-uncle, a reclusive man with a dark interest in the occult. Sarah reads from an old newspaper. Local recluse found dead under mysterious circumstances. Manor believed to be haunted. Michael sighs. This explains a lot. We need to be careful. Emily, still shaken, adds, "What if the spirits are still here?" Back at the manor, Michael discovers a hidden door in the basement. Inside, they find an old study filled with books on the occult, strange artifacts, and a large locked chest. Sarah examines a book. He was into dark stuff. This can't be good. Michael tries to open the chest, but fails. We need to find the key. There might be answers inside. Emily points to a strange symbol on the wall. I've seen this symbol before, in my room. That night, the hauntings escalate. Objects move on their own, and ghostly apparitions appear. Emily is dragged out of bed by an unseen force, and Sarah sees a shadowy figure standing at the end of the hallway, watching them. "We have to leave now," Sarah screams, but the doors are locked and won't open. Michael grabs an old book from the study. This book has instructions to banish the spirits. We need to perform the ritual. Desperate, the family gathers in the basement to perform the ritual. They light candles and arrange the symbols in a circle. Michael reads the incantation aloud, while Sarah and Emily hold hands, trembling. As the ritual progresses, the house shakes, and the spirits grow more agitated. A blinding light fills the room, and the spirits are drawn into the circle, screaming. "Keep going, Michael!" Sarah yells over the noise. With a final shout, Michael completes the incantation, and the spirits vanish. The house falls silent. The next morning, the manor feels different. The oppressive atmosphere is gone, and sunlight streams through the windows. The family packs up their belongings, relieved that the ordeal is over. "We should tell someone about this place," Sarah says, looking back at the manor. Michael nods. "Let's make sure no one else has to go through this." They drive away, leaving the manor behind. Back home, life seems to return to normal. But one night, Emily finds the old mirror in her room, even though they left it at the manor. Her heart races as she sees words slowly appear on the surface. "We are not done," it reads. Emily turns to see a shadowy figure standing in the corner, its eyes glowing with malevolence. She screams as the room plunges into darkness. In a small town nestled among the hills, an old abandoned mill stood tall, its dark silhouette looming against the twilight sky. For years, the townsfolk had whispered tales of strange occurrences within its decaying walls. Tonight, a group of curious teenagers dared each other to explore its depths, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. Among the group was Sarah, a brave soul who accepted the dare without hesitation. Her friends, Alex, Jake, and Emily, exchanged nervous glances but followed her lead. Armed with only flashlights and nervous laughter, they ventured into the mill, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the floorboards creaked beneath their feet. Shadows danced on the walls, and strange symbols adorned the crumbling brickwork. The group pressed on, drawn deeper into the labyrinthine corridors by an unseen force. As they explored, they began to hear whispers, a faint, ghostly sound that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Sarah's heart raced as she urged her friends to keep moving, but the whispers grew louder, echoing through the halls like a sinister chorus. Suddenly, a figure materialized before them, a ghostly apparition with hollow eyes and a tattered gown. Sarah gasped, frozen in terror as the ghost reached out with spectral hands. With a scream, she bolted, her friends close behind, but the ghost pursued them with relentless determination. They raced through the corridors, their hearts pounding in their chests as the ghost closed in. Sarah could feel its icy breath on her neck, its chilling touch sending shivers down her spine. With every turn, they prayed for an exit, but the mill seemed to stretch on endlessly, trapping them in its clutches. Just when all hope seemed lost, they stumbled upon a door, a faint glimmer of moonlight shining through the cracks. With a burst of adrenaline, they pushed through, stumbling out into the night air. Behind them, the mill collapsed in a cloud of dust, the ghost's haunting cries fading into the distance. As they collapsed in exhaustion, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the ghost still lingered, watching them from the shadows. She vowed never to return to the mill, but she knew its haunting presence would stay with her forever, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked in the darkness. The camera pans over a serene lake surrounded by towering trees. The water reflects the golden hues of the setting sun, creating a picturesque scene. But beneath the tranquil surface lies a sinister secret waiting to be uncovered. A group of friends arrives at a lakeside cabin for a weekend getaway. They laugh and joke as they unpack their bags, eager to unwind and enjoy the beauty of nature. As night falls, one of the friends, Emma, shares a local legend about the lake, a tale of a vengeful spirit haunting its waters, seeking revenge on anyone who dares to disturb its slumber. The group dismisses the legend as mere superstition. Strange occurrences plague the cabin, whispers in the night, unexplained shadows flickering in the corners, and cold drafts chilling the air. The friends brush off their unease, attributing it to the eerie atmosphere of the lake. Exploring the cabin, one of the friends, Jack, finds an old journal hidden beneath the floorboards. Its pages reveal the tragic history of the lake, a tale of betrayal and murder that has haunted its shores for centuries. The vengeful spirit of the lake manifests, its ghostly form stalking the friends with malicious intent. Terror grips their hearts as they realize they are being hunted by a force beyond their understanding. In a desperate bid for survival, the friends confront the vengeful spirit at the water's edge. Armed with courage and determination, they must uncover the truth behind the spirit's rage to break the curse that binds them. Through bravery and sacrifice, the friends uncover the truth behind the spirit's curse and lay it to rest. As dawn breaks, they emerge from the darkness, forever changed by their harrowing ordeal.
At the end of a desolate road sits an abandoned house, its once grand facade now marred by neglect. Boarded-up windows and peeling paint tell the tale of years gone by, while dead trees loom overhead, casting ominous shadows upon the overgrown lawn. A narrow path winds its way through the dense forest, the branches overhead blocking out the moonlight and shrouding the surroundings in darkness. Roots protrude from the ground like gnarled fingers, creating trip hazards for any who dare to tread upon the shadowed path. In the heart of the forest lies a moonlit clearing, the soft light casting eerie shadows upon the ground. A sense of unease hangs heavy in the air, as if unseen eyes are watching from the darkness beyond. A derelict bridge spans a chasm, its rusted metal rails barely holding together against the ravages of time. The river below churns with a menacing intensity, its dark waters reflecting the moon's ghostly glow like a mirror into the abyss. Deep within the forest lies a forgotten cemetery, its tombstones weathered and worn with age. Wisps of mist cling to the ground, shrouding the graves in an otherworldly haze that seems to whisper secrets of the past. At the edge of the clearing stands an ancient well, its stone walls covered in moss and ivy that seem to writhe and twist in the moonlight. The darkness within seems to swallow all light, drawing the eye into its mysterious depths with an irresistible pull. Twisted trees loom overhead, their gnarled branches reaching out like grasping hands eager to ensnare the unwary. Shadows dance among the tangled foliage, casting strange shapes upon the forest floor and adding to the sense of foreboding that permeates the air. Sinister shadows stretch across the forest floor, their shifting forms creating an eerie tableau that seems to come alive in the darkness. The air is thick with the sound of whispered secrets, as if the very darkness itself is alive with malevolent intent. Deep within the forest lies a haunted glade, its twisted beauty a stark contrast to the surrounding darkness. Strange symbols adorn the trees, their meaning lost to time, and their presence adding to the sense of unease that permeates the air. As the first light of dawn breaks through the darkness, the forest is bathed in a warm glow that banishes the shadows and brings hope to the land. Birds sing in the trees, their joyful chorus heralding the arrival of a new day and chasing away the lingering echoes of the night.
On the outskirts of town lies a dense forest, shrouded in mystery and fear. Four friends, Alex, Sarah, Mark, and Jessica, venture into the woods, despite warnings of its haunted past. As they step into the darkness, eerie whispers seem to echo through the trees. Deep within the woods, they stumble upon an abandoned cabin, its windows boarded up and doors creaking in the wind. Against their better judgment, they enter, drawn by an inexplicable force. Inside, the air is heavy with the weight of forgotten secrets. Within the cabin, they find decaying furniture and cobwebs clinging to every corner. Strange symbols are etched into the walls, and the floorboards creak underfoot. Suddenly, they hear a faint whisper, chilling them to the bone. As they explore further, a sense of unease washes over them. Shadows dance in the corners of their vision, and the temperature drops. Then, they catch a glimpse of a spectral figure standing in the doorway, its eyes glowing with otherworldly light. Panic sets in as the ghostly figure approaches, its presence growing more ominous by the second. With hearts pounding, the friends flee the cabin, running blindly through the dark forest. Behind them, they hear the echoing laughter of the spirits that inhabit the woods. Exhausted and trembling, the friends emerge from the woods, their minds reeling from the horrors they've witnessed. They vow never to return to the forbidden woods, haunted by the echoes of their harrowing encounter.
On a foggy night, four friends, Jack, Mia, Ethan, and Sophie, arrived at Blackwood Manor. The old abandoned mansion was said to be cursed. They had come to investigate the legend. They pushed it open the heavy front door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the air was cold and stale. Dust covered every surface and cobwebs hung in the corners. The living room was filled with old furniture covered in white sheets. An antique chandelier hung from the ceiling, and a grand piano stood in the corner. Suddenly, the piano played a single, eerie note, causing everyone to jump. They moved to the library, where shelves of dusty books lined the walls. Jack picked up an old book, and as he opened it, a cold breeze swept through the room, making the candles flicker. They entered a long hallway filled with old portraits. The eyes of the portraits seemed to follow them as they walked. Mia shivered, feeling a chill run down her spine. At the end of the hallway, they found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to go down. The wooden stairs creaked under their weight, and the air grew colder with each step. The basement was cold and damp. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls. In the corner, they saw a ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. She reached out to them, and they felt an icy chill. Terrified, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return. Back at their homes, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying and decided never to speak of it again.
On a cold, moonlit night, four friends, Jake, Emily, Noah, and Lisa, stood at the gate of Blackwood Manor. The mansion was notorious for being haunted. They decided to enter, driven by curiosity and a dare. They pushed open the creaky front door and stepped inside. The foyer was dark and dusty, with cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. Old portraits stared at them from the walls. They moved into the living room, where a grand piano stood in one corner and a large, broken chandelier hung from the ceiling. Suddenly, the piano played a single, haunting note. Everyone froze in fear. Gathering their courage, they climbed the creaky staircase to the second floor. The hallway was long and dark, with several closed doors. They heard faint, eerie whispers, but couldn't tell where they were coming from. They opened one of the doors and found an old nursery. Dusty toys were scattered around, and a rocking chair in the corner started moving on its own. They heard a child's laughter echoing through the room. Panicked, they rushed downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was even darker and colder. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls, and old furniture was strewn around. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. Her hollow eyes stared at them as she whispered, "Leave this place." Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return to Blackwood Manor. Back at home, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying and agreed never to speak of it again. The abandoned Ravenswood Asylum stood on a hill, shrouded in fog and mystery. Jessica, a paranormal investigator, arrived at dusk, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. She parked her car and gazed at the looming building, its windows dark and empty like soulless eyes. Jessica pushed open the heavy front door, which groaned loudly. Inside, the asylum was dark and cold. She turned on her flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. The walls were lined with peeling paint and graffiti, and the floor was littered with debris. Her footsteps echoed eerily as she ventured deeper. As Jessica explored the main hallway, she felt a sudden chill. She turned to see a ghostly figure of a nurse standing at the end of the corridor. The nurse's face was pale and expressionless, and she slowly raised a finger to her lips as if to shush Jessica. Then she vanished into thin air. Jessica entered a room that appeared to have been a common area. Old, broken furniture was scattered around, and the walls were covered with faded, eerie drawings. As she examined the drawings, she heard faint whispers. She turned to see shadowy figures moving along the walls, their eyes glowing faintly. In the corner of the room, Jessica found an old journal. She opened it and read about the asylum's dark history, experiments on patients, mysterious deaths, and cover-ups. The journal mentioned a hidden basement where the worst atrocities occurred. Determined, Jessica set out to find it. Jessica found a hidden door behind a bookshelf, leading to a staircase that descended into darkness. She took a deep breath and started down the steps. The basement was cold and damp, with rusty equipment and old stained medical tools scattered around. The air was thick with the smell of decay. In the basement, Jessica saw the spirits of the patients. They were trapped, reliving their torment. A particularly sorrowful spirit, a young woman named Alice, revealed that the asylum's director had performed cruel experiments on them. The spirits begged Jessica to help them find peace. Jessica found a hidden chamber where the director's spirit lingered, still obsessed with his experiments. She confronted him, demanding he release the tortured souls. The director's spirit raged, but the power of the trapped souls combined with Jessica's determination forced him to vanish into the ether. With the director's spirit gone, the asylum began to crumble. Jessica hurried out, watching from a safe distance as the building collapsed. The spirits were finally free, and a sense of peace settled over the area. As the sun rose, the fog lifted, revealing a bright new day. Julia and her husband Mark move into an old Victorian house in a small town. The house is beautiful, but has been vacant for years. As they unpack, Julia finds an old dusty mirror in the attic. She decides to clean it and hang it in their bedroom. That night, Julia wakes up to strange sounds, whispering and soft footsteps. She dismisses it as the house settling. However, when she looks into the mirror, she briefly sees a shadowy figure behind her before it vanishes. Disturbed by the experience, Julia visits the local library to research the house's history. She learns that a woman named Elizabeth lived there a century ago and mysteriously disappeared. Locals believe her spirit haunts the house. Julia becomes convinced that the mirror is connected to Elizabeth. That night, she sees Elizabeth's ghost in the mirror again. This time, the ghost seems to be trying to communicate, mouthing the words, "Help me." Julia tells Mark about her experiences. Skeptical but wanting to support her, Mark suggests they consult a paranormal expert. The expert tells them that Elizabeth's spirit is trapped and needs help to find peace. The expert instructs them to perform a ritual to release Elizabeth's spirit. They set up candles and the mirror in the living room. Julia reads a passage provided by the expert. The room grows cold, and Elizabeth's spirit appears. Elizabeth's spirit reveals that she was murdered by her jealous husband and her body hidden in the basement. Julia and Mark are horrified but determined to give Elizabeth justice. They find her remains in the basement, just as she described. They call the police, who properly lay Elizabeth's remains to rest. Afterward, the house feels lighter and the strange occurrences stop. Julia looks at the mirror one last time and sees Elizabeth smiling peacefully before fading away. Months later, Julia and Mark have settled into their now peaceful home. They keep the mirror as a reminder of Elizabeth and the mystery they solved together. Life returns to normal, but they never forget the ghostly presence that once haunted their home. In the outskirts of a small town stands an old, dilapidated house, its windows shattered and its walls covered in ivy. 4 friends, Tom, Sarah, Emily, and Alex, decide to explore the abandoned house one evening. As they approach, the moon casts eerie shadows on the broken porch. With trepidation, the friends push open the creaking front door and step into the house's foyer. The air is musty, and dust motes dance in the beams of their flashlights. As they explore further, they feel a sense of unease settle over them, as if the house itself is watching their every move. Inside the house, they encounter rooms filled with decaying furniture and peeling wallpaper. Strange symbols are etched into the walls, and the temperature drops noticeably as they explore deeper. A feeling of dread washes over the group as they realize they are not alone in the house. As they delve further into the house, they begin to hear faint whispers that seem to echo through the halls. The whispers grow louder and more insistent, filling the air with an eerie chorus that sends shivers down their spines. Shadows dance on the walls, twisting and contorting in unnatural ways. Suddenly, a ghostly figure materializes before them, a translucent apparition with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. Its ethereal form hovers in the air, its movements slow and deliberate. Frozen with fear, the friends watch as the ghostly figure drifts closer, its presence filling the house with a chilling cold. With a collective cry, the friends turn and flee from the house, their hearts pounding with terror. They race through the dark corridors, their breath ragged and their footsteps echoing off the walls. Behind them, the ghostly figure follows, its unearthly wails echoing through the empty halls. Exhausted and trembling, the friends emerge from the house, their minds reeling from the horrors they've witnessed. They vow never to speak of their night in the haunted house again, haunted by the shadows that lurk within its walls. But they know that some secrets are best left buried in the darkness. Emma, a young writer in her late 20s, inherits an old mansion called Everwood Manor from her estranged aunt. Hoping to find inspiration for her next novel, she moves into the house. As she steps inside, she feels an unsettling chill. The house, surrounded by tall, dark trees, looks like it hasn't been lived in for years. Dust covers the furniture, and the air is thick with the scent of old wood and mildew. She feels a strange sense of foreboding, but brushes it off as nerves. On her first night, Emma struggles to sleep. The house is filled with strange noises, the creaking of floorboards, the whisper of the wind through cracks in the windows, and distant, indistinct whispers. She hears what sounds like footsteps outside her bedroom door, but when she checks, no one is there. She returns to bed, uneasy and sleep-deprived. The next day, while exploring the house, Emma discovers a locked door in the basement. Curious, she searches the house and finds an old rusty key hidden in a drawer. She uses the key to unlock the door and finds a small room filled with old furniture, cobwebs, and a large, ornate mirror covered with a cloth. Emma removes the cloth from the mirror and, to her shock, sees the reflection of a young girl standing behind her. When she turns around, no one is there. The mirror begins to show disturbing images of past events in the house, including a girl being trapped and crying for help. Emma feels a chill run down her spine. Determined to find out more, Emma searches the house and finds an old diary hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. The diary belonged to her aunt and details a tragic story of a girl named Lily who lived in the house and mysteriously disappeared. Emma realizes the ghost she saw is Lily, trapped in the mirror. Emma decides to perform a seance to communicate with Lily's spirit. She sets up candles and chants words from the diary. The room grows cold, and Lily's ghost appears, revealing that she was trapped by a dark ritual performed by Emma's aunt. Lily begs Emma to free her. Following Lily's instructions, Emma gathers the items needed to break the ritual: a locket, a piece of Lily's clothing, and a special incantation. As she performs the ritual, the house shakes violently, and a dark, malevolent spirit tries to stop her. Emma persists, chanting the incantation louder and louder. The dark spirit attacks, but Emma continues the ritual, calling out to Lily for strength. A bright light fills the room, and the dark spirit screams before dissipating into nothingness. Lily's spirit smiles gratefully at Emma before ascending into the light, finally freed. With the haunting over, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. Emma finishes her novel, inspired by Lily's story. She decides to keep Everwood Manor and transform it into a place of peace and creativity. Sitting on the porch, she feels a deep connection to the house and its history, ready for a new beginning.
Emily, a young historian, inherits the infamous Blackwood Mansion from her estranged great-uncle. Accompanied by her friends Jack and Lucy, she arrives on a stormy evening, the rain pouring down as they make their way through the overgrown driveway. The mansion looms before them, dark and foreboding. "Are you sure about this, Emily?" Jack asks, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. We need to know what he left behind, Emily replies, gripping the ancient key tightly. Inside, the mansion is a maze of dusty rooms and forgotten relics. The grand staircase is adorned with cobwebs, and the air smells of mildew and decay. They split up to explore, flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. This place is a historian's dream, Emily says, opening an old book. Lucy shivers. More like a nightmare. Jack finds a locked door in the basement. Hey, I think I found something. After breaking the lock, they enter a hidden room filled with strange artifacts and occult symbols. In the center, there's an altar with a dusty old book and a glowing amulet. This must be where he performed his rituals, Jack says, examining the symbols. Emily picks up the amulet. Look at this. It's beautiful. Lucy steps back uneasy. I don't like this place. We should leave. That night, they decide to stay in the mansion. As they settle in, strange things begin to happen. Doors creak and whispering voices echo through the halls. Emily is awakened by the sound of footsteps in her room. Who's there? She whispers, clutching the amulet. A shadowy figure moves in the corner, vanishing when she turns on the light. The next day, Emily and her friends delve into the old book they found. It reveals a dark history of the Blackwood family, including a curse that promises eternal torment to anyone who disturbs the amulet. This explains the strange occurrences, Emily says, her voice shaking. We need to put the amulet back. But where does it go? Jack asks. The book mentions a secret crypt beneath the mansion. They find the entrance to the crypt hidden beneath a trapdoor in the basement. The air is cold and damp as they descend the stone steps. The crypt is filled with ancient tombs and eerie statues. This place gives me the creeps, Lucy says, her voice echoing. Emily finds a pedestal with an indentation matching the amulet. This must be it. As she places the amulet on the pedestal, the ground shakes, and a ghostly figure appears, screaming in rage. That night, the mansion becomes a nightmare. Ghostly apparitions roam the halls and objects move on their own. The friends are terrorized by relentless hauntings. They gather in the living room, trying to come up with a plan. We need to banish the spirits, Emily says, holding the book of spells. Jack nods. Let's do it together. They begin the ritual, their voices shaky but determined. As they recite the banishment spell, the apparitions grow more aggressive. The temperature drops and a fierce wind blows through the mansion. The dark figure from before reappears, trying to stop them. Keep going! Emily shouts over the chaos. With a final shout, they complete the ritual. The figure screams and dissolves into mist. The wind dies down, and the mansion falls silent. We did it, Lucy whispers, tears of relief in her eyes. The next morning, the mansion feels different. The oppressive atmosphere is gone, and sunlight streams through the windows. The friends prepare to leave, feeling a sense of accomplishment. We should document everything, Emily says, looking back at the mansion one last time. Jack nods. Let's make sure no one else has to go through this. They lock the doors and drive away, leaving Blackwood Mansion and its dark history behind. Back home, life seems to return to normal. But one night, Emily finds the old amulet on her bedside table, even though she left it in the crypt. Her heart races as she picks it up, and the room grows cold. A whispering voice fills the room. You cannot escape the curse. Emily turns to see the dark figure standing behind her, its eyes glowing with malevolence. She screams as the room plunges into darkness.
Emma, a young writer in her late 20s, inherits an old mansion called Ravenwood Manor from her estranged uncle. She decides to visit the house, hoping it will be a quiet place to write her novel. As she arrives, she feels an unsettling chill in the air. The house, surrounded by dark woods, looks like it hasn't been touched in years. Vines creep up the stone walls, and the windows are dark and foreboding. On her first night, Emma struggles to sleep. The house creaks and groans as if it's alive. She hears footsteps in the hallway and the faint sound of whispers. When she investigates, she finds nothing but darkness and silence. She returns to bed, feeling uneasy. The next day, while exploring the house, Emma discovers a locked door in the basement. Curious, she searches the house and finds an old, rusty key hidden in a drawer. She uses the key to unlock the door and finds a small room filled with old furniture, cobwebs, and a large ornate mirror covered with a cloth. Emma removes the cloth from the mirror and, to her shock, sees the reflection of a young girl standing behind her. When she turns around, no one is there. The mirror begins to show disturbing images of past events in the house, including a girl being trapped and crying for help. Emma feels a chill run down her spine. Determined to find out more, Emma searches the house and finds an old diary hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. The diary belonged to her uncle and details a tragic story of a girl named Lily who lived in the house and mysteriously disappeared. Emma realizes the ghost she saw as Lily, trapped in the mirror. Emma decides to perform a seance to communicate with Lily's spirit. She sets up candles and chants words from the diary. The room grows cold and Lily's ghost appears, revealing that she was trapped by a dark ritual performed by Emma's uncle. Lily begs Emma to free her. Following Lily's instructions, Emma gathers the items needed to break the ritual: a locket, a piece of Lily's clothing, and a special incantation. As she performs the ritual, the house shakes violently, and a dark, malevolent spirit tries to stop her. Emma persists, chanting the incantation louder and louder. The dark spirit attacks, but Emma continues the ritual, calling out to Lily for strength. A bright light fills the room, and the dark spirit screams before dissipating into nothingness. Lily's spirit smiles gratefully at Emma before ascending into the light, finally freed. With the haunting over, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. Emma finishes her novel, inspired by Lily's story. She decides to keep Ravenwood Manor and transform it into a place of peace and creativity. Sitting on the porch, she feels a deep connection to the house and its history, ready for a new beginning. A group of friends, Sam, Lily, Ben, and Emma, arrive at Willow Lake, a secluded campground nestled deep in the woods. The air is thick with anticipation as they unpack their gear and set up camp beside the tranquil waters. The sun sets in the distance, casting an orange glow over the towering trees that surround them. As night falls, the friends gather around a crackling campfire, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. They share spooky stories of ghosts and ghouls, their laughter echoing through the silent forest. But as the tales grow darker, a sense of unease settles over the group, and they can't shake the feeling that they are being watched. As they settle into their tents for the night, strange noises echo through the woods, creaking branches, rustling leaves, and eerie whispers that seem to float on the breeze. The friends huddle together, their hearts pounding with fear as they try to rationalize the unexplained phenomena. But deep down, they know that something sinister lurks in the darkness. Unable to shake their fear, the friends decide to investigate the source of the strange noises. Armed with flashlights, they venture into the dark woods, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of pine needles beneath their feet. The air is heavy with anticipation as they follow the trail deeper into the forest, their hearts pounding with each step. Eventually, they stumble upon a clearing in the woods, where an ancient oak tree stands sentinel in the moonlight. Strange symbols are etched into its bark, and a sense of malevolence hangs heavy in the air. As they approach, they are overcome by a wave of dread, knowing that they have stumbled upon something beyond their understanding. Suddenly, ghostly figures materialize before them, translucent apparitions with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. The spirits drift through the clearing, their movements graceful yet unsettling. The friends watch in horror as the ghosts draw closer, their presence filling the night with a chilling aura. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends turn and flee from the haunted clearing, their hearts pounding with terror. They race through the darkened woods, their footsteps echoing off the trees as they struggle to escape the malevolent spirits that pursue them. Branches claw at their skin, and roots trip them up as they push themselves to their limits.
Lily received a mysterious letter inviting her to an old mansion that once belonged to her ancestors. She had always been curious about her family's past and decided to visit. The mansion was isolated, surrounded by overgrown trees and an eerie silence. As she walked towards the door, the sky turned gray and the wind began to howl. Lily pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and dusty, with cobwebs hanging from the corners. An old chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. The door slammed shut behind her, making her jump. Lily stepped into the grand hall, where portraits of stern-looking ancestors lined the walls. Their eyes seemed to follow her as she moved. She felt a chill run down her spine as she heard faint whispering. The room was dimly lit by the light filtering through the grimy windows. Lily found herself in the mansion's library, filled with dusty books and old furniture. An old leather-bound book lay open on a desk. As she approached, she saw it was a diary detailing strange rituals and mysterious disappearances. The air grew colder, and she felt an unseen presence watching her. Lily discovered a secret door behind a bookshelf. She hesitated but then pushed it open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down. The air was damp and cold. With her flashlight in hand, she began to descend, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the silence. The basement was even colder, with strange symbols painted on the walls and an old wooden table in the center. On the table were ancient artifacts and melted candles. Lily felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She heard whispers growing louder, almost as if they were coming from the walls themselves. Lily's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. Panic set in as the whispers turned into screams. She fumbled to turn the flashlight back on. When she did, she saw a ghostly figure standing by the table, staring at her with hollow eyes. She backed away in terror. Desperate to escape, Lily turned and ran up the stairs. The house seemed to come alive, with doors slamming and shadows moving around her. She reached the front door, threw it open, and ran into the stormy night, her heart pounding. She didn't stop until she reached her car. Breathing heavily, Lily glanced back at the mansion as she reached her car. In an upstairs window, she saw the ghostly figure watching her. The whispers faded, but the memory of that night would haunt her forever. She drove away, vowing never to return. It was a cold, rainy evening when Emily received a letter from a law firm she had never heard of. Her great-uncle, a man she had never met, had passed away and left her his mansion, Blackwood Manor. Intrigued by the unexpected inheritance, Emily decided to visit the old house with her friends, Mark, Sophie, and Daniel. "I can't believe this place is mine," Emily said as they drove up the winding road to the mansion. Blackwood Manor loomed ahead, a Gothic structure with ivy-covered walls and dark, empty windows that seemed to watch their every move. "Looks like something out of a horror movie," Daniel joked, though his eyes reflected a hint of fear. Inside, the mansion was even more imposing. High ceilings, dusty furniture, and cobwebs in every corner gave it an eerie atmosphere. They split up to explore, each drawn to different parts of the house. "Look at this place," Sophie said, her voice echoing in the grand foyer. "It's like stepping back in time." Emily found herself in the library, where she discovered old family portraits in a large leather-bound book on a pedestal. As she opened it, a chill ran down her spine. The book contained detailed accounts of strange rituals and ghostly sightings. "This is weird," she murmured, feeling an inexplicable sense of dread. That night, the friends settled into their rooms. The wind howled outside, and the mansion creaked with every gust. Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As she tried to sleep, she heard whispers and footsteps in the hallway. "Who's there?" she called out, but received no answer. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the foot of her bed. Emily screamed, waking everyone up. When they rushed into her room, the figure was gone. "It was right there," Emily insisted, trembling. "It was just a bad dream," Mark said, trying to comfort her, but his voice lacked conviction. The next day, they decided to explore the basement, hoping to uncover the source of the strange occurrences. The basement was dark and musty, filled with old furniture and boxes. In the far corner, they found a hidden door. "This place just gets creepier," Daniel said as they pried the door open. Inside was a small room filled with bizarre artifacts, jars with strange contents, ancient symbols carved into the walls, and a large, dusty mirror. "What the hell is all this?" Sophie asked, her voice shaking. "It looks like some kind of ritual room," Emily said, her unease growing. Emily felt drawn to the mirror. As she wiped away the dust, she saw not just her reflection, but another face behind her. An old woman with hollow eyes and a sinister smile. "Emily, step away from the mirror," Mark said, pulling her back. The reflection changed, showing horrific scenes of past inhabitants suffering. The room grew colder and the sense of dread intensified. "We need to get out of here," Daniel said urgently. But the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The symbols on the walls began to glow, and the ghostly face in the mirror started to chant. Trapped in the basement, the friends tried to find a way out. The ghostly presence grew stronger, manifesting in front of them. The old woman from the mirror appeared, her eyes filled with malice. "You shouldn't have come here," she hissed. "This house is cursed." Objects began to fly around the room, and the friends huddled together, trying to protect themselves. Emily remembered the book she found in the library. "We need to perform a ritual to banish her," she shouted over the chaos. Emily and the others rushed back to the library to retrieve the book. As they read through the incantations, the mansion seemed to come alive, with doors slamming and windows shattering. "Hurry, Emily," Sophie urged. Emily recited the ritual, and the ghostly figure screamed in rage. The house shook violently, and the friends struggled to keep their balance. "By the power of light, we banish you," Emily shouted. A blinding light filled the room, and the ghost's scream reached a deafening pitch before she vanished, leaving the house silent once more. The mansion was eerily quiet after the ghost was banished. The friends cautiously explored, ensuring the spirit was truly gone. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, and the house seemed almost peaceful. "We did it," Daniel said, relieved. "But what now?" Sophie asked. "This place still feels wrong." "We should leave," Emily decided. "This house needs to be left alone." They packed their things and left Blackwood Manor, vowing to never return. As they drove away, Emily glanced back one last time. The mansion stood silently, its dark history buried once more. Back in their town, life slowly returned to normal. The friends tried to move on, but the memories of Blackwood Manor lingered. Emily kept the book hidden away, a reminder of the horrors they faced. One night, Emily heard a familiar whispering. She turned to see the old woman from the mirror standing at the foot of her bed. "Did you really think it was over?" the ghost whispered, her voice dripping with malice. Emily screamed, and the room went dark. The nightmare was far from over. Blackwood House stood isolated in the dense forest. Its windows were broken, and the walls were cracked. As dusk set in, the sky turned an eerie orange and purple, casting a sinister glow on the decaying structure. Inside the house, the foyer was dark and filled with dust and cobwebs. An old creaky staircase led up to the second floor, and a broken chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals missing or shattered. The living room was filled with tattered furniture and a cold fireplace. A broken window let in a sliver of moonlight, illuminating the peeling wallpaper and the thick layer of dust that covered everything. The kitchen was a mess of broken cabinets and rusty appliances. A large wooden table in the center was covered in dust and cobwebs, and an old broken stove stood in the corner, untouched for years. The dining room featured a long table with an old tattered tablecloth. The chairs were scattered and overturned, and a single dusty candle sat at the center of the table, unlit and forgotten. The hallway was long and dark, with old creaky floorboards and faded wallpaper. Closed doors lined the hallway, each marked with a different ominous symbol, hinting at the secrets hidden within. The bedroom was dusty and old, with a large canopy bed covered in cobwebs. The curtains were tattered, and moonlight streamed in through a cracked window, casting eerie shadows on the floor. The attic was filled with old, forgotten items covered in dust and cobwebs. A single small window let in a beam of moonlight, illuminating strange old toys scattered on the floor. The air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The basement was dark and damp, with stone walls and a dirt floor. Old rusty chains hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The sense of dread was palpable, as if the walls themselves whispered secrets. As dawn broke, Blackwood House was bathed in a soft golden light. The forest around it remained dark, but the first rays of the sun illuminated the decaying structure. The night's terror faded, but the house's haunting presence remained, a testament to its cursed history. Ravenswood Manor was infamous in the small town of Crestwood. Emily, a curious historian, decided to explore the mansion for her research on haunted houses. She arrived just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the old, decrepit building. The iron gates creaked as she pushed them open, feeling a chill run down her spine. Emily pushed open the heavy wooden door, which groaned loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and musty. Dust covered the floor, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but neglected foyer. Her footsteps echoed ominously as she walked down the main hallway, her breath visible in the cold air. As Emily explored, she noticed the shadows on the walls seemed to move independently of the light. She heard faint whispers like a distant conversation. Her heart raced as she spun around, but the hall was empty. Determined to continue, she pressed on, feeling the unseen eyes watching her every move. A dimly lit dining room with a large old portrait of a stern-looking woman hanging on the wall. The eyes in the painting appear to follow Emily as she moves. Emily stands close to the painting, looking at it with a mix of curiosity and fear. The room feels cold, with visible breath in the air, adding to the chilling atmosphere. A dark, dusty basement with strange symbols painted on the walls and old books scattered on a table. Emily stands in the center, holding a journal and reading it with a look of horror and fascination. The atmosphere is mysterious and filled with an air of dark secrets and ancient curses. As Emily read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Eliza Ravenswood appeared, her face twisted with rage. She pointed at Emily and screamed, "You should not have come here!" The walls shook, and the air filled with a chilling wind. Emily knew she had to leave immediately. Emily bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind her. She raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on her. She burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but she could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on her. Back in her apartment, Emily reviewed the photos and notes she had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article, revealing the dark history of Ravenswood Manor. As she finished, she felt a cold draft and heard Eliza's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." She knew the haunting was far from over.